We finally got to hear everybody play outdoors.
Yeah, it was a good, refreshing change of venue from last weekend being in the Alamo Dome versus having everybody outside, a little bit drier.
Yeah, it was a nice surprise. I had no idea. Like, I got to your house and the stream was already on, and I was like, where the hell are they?
Yeah, and I guess that's the Alamo, or the new Georgia Dome, whatever it's going to be called, is not done yet. I guess that was the plan originally to have it there, but I figured when I heard that a while back that they were going to have it the new venue that wasn't going to work out. I was like, I don't think they're going to be done. But it was nice. I was glad it was outside.
Nothing could hide. No groups hid. You could hear everything on the stream. We streamed that in 4K, right? Or was that not?
I think it was just 1080.
Good enough. Whatever. Stuff sounded great. We heard everything that was good, and on the flip side, everything that was bad. And there was a lot of stuff that was bad, along with a lot of stuff that was very good. But so just to start, well, first I'll introduce the podcast again, like I always should do. Welcome everybody. It's episode 5 of the Aged Out podcast with Mike Fantini, and sitting next to me as always,
Evan Worrell.
And yeah, we just got done watching the Atlanta Regional.
I guess if you want to call it a regional.
Yeah, there were like 6 groups missing.
Yeah, I thought that was really strange. I mean, usually the Atlanta Regional is everyone, like top to bottom. Just
like San Antonio last weekend, every single corps was there. Every world-class corps was there. And we're like sitting there watching, and we're looking at the schedule, and like, where's Crossman? Where are the Colts? Where's the Madison Scouts?
Troopers are gone. Mandarins are gone.
Yeah, it's like I think it was 6 total groups that weren't there. I don't know what the heck was going on. Maybe it was a time frame thing. Maybe it was just a show site space issue. I don't know. But it was definitely awesome having that show outside instead of in another dome.
Yeah, I remember right away we were watching, I think...
Seattle Cascades.
Yeah, Seattle Cascades was the first group that we caught, and just noticing like the tuning and the clarity and how well and articulate you could hear just not only just the snare drums, but the other voices in the battery and percussion sections. Just having that dry atmosphere without the dome and the boominess. I was like, man, you can just hear everything. This sounds wonderful.
Yep, it was great. Felt like I was there. Obviously wasn't the same as being there, but it was way better than watching it stream from a dome, for sure.
And I remember you said too, like, man, I'm excited to hear like the rest of the groups, because Cascades, they sounded really good. I was like, if this is what...
Yeah, like Oregon Crusaders, like Cascades.
13th, 14th place groups are sounding like, man, this is gonna be a good night.
And something I saw from those groups that I really liked was the books weren't overwritten. So they played well still. Like, they were playing a lot of that stuff pretty well. I mean, granted, again, the difficulty of the content in their book wasn't on par with the Cadets, Crown, Blue Devils, but it was an achievable book. Like, obviously those members are probably more inexperienced and younger, but they were still able to play it well, which was great to hear. Like, I hate seeing younger groups just reaching for the stars, and you do have to have you have to have stuff in your book that people have to reach for, so you don't make it too easy so they don't get bored. But I felt like the difficulty level was probably right where it needed to be, because there was still some gray moments and stuff that wasn't clean, but a lot of it just sounded really solid from those like Cascades, Oregon Crusaders. Yeah, it was just, I was really happy to see that.
All right, see here. You want to kind of move through the recap bottom to top, or?
Let's do it from top to bottom.
Top to bottom?
Let's go from top to bottom on the recap from last night.
Top to bottom overall, or top to bottom percussion?
Just percussion.
Just percussion?
I don't give a crap who won.
Well, I do.
Well, actually, we are going to talk about that at the end of this, but let's start with percussion scores.
Yeah, so overall, best percussion last night by about 0.3, almost. A little bit under that. Santa Clara Vanguard.
100% agree.
Yeah, they were phenomenal.
Like, anything we said on the last one about them, the snare line having seemingly like a little bit of hitting a rough patch of the summer, it might have just been a bad run, because they sounded incredible. Like, the outdoors venue did nothing but help that group, because it was phenomenal. Those guys threw down.
The clarity, the ensemble timing front to back, just everything, the balance of like the battery sections to the front ensemble, I was just like, man, they're jamming.
Yes. I mean, the quad line, their quad line's phenomenal, I think. Now, I don't know, would you compare them to BD's quad line? You think they're as good as BD's quad line? Or better?
I think they're just as good. It's just kind of wild because the difference in technique and like the difference in like musical, I guess, content is so much different. BD, I think, is always just has like things that they do that no one else can do. But now on the flip side of that too, Vanguard's quad line, the way they play and their technique and the style, they kind of like flow and just like slide and glide across the drums, and I'm just like, wow,
they awesome. Play their features and it gets done, and I just laugh because I have no idea what rhythms they just played, but it was perfect. But it was really, really good. So I think we both agree Vanguard should have easily been in first. I was glad it was more than just 0.1 because I felt like they were head and shoulders above everybody else last night.
Agreed. Very much agree. And also, like, just to kind of segue from them into the Blue Devils, who finished second in drums last night in percussion caption. I thought I'm all right with Blue Devils being in the 2 spot. I thought that they played great. I thought that all their exposed moments, I was like, man, they nailed that.
And you know, from listening to our previous episodes, we're not the biggest BD fans.
No.
But we were sitting there, we were like listening, waiting for something to be like, oh, there it is, BD just threw that away.
Yeah.
Typical. But every exposed moment was great. Even the 18 snare drum stuff at the beginning. Now I'm pretty sure that's always going to be gray. And what we mean by gray is just unbalanced.
Just because there's so many of them.
There's 18 of them. And the guys on either end of the snare line, like, I mean, when we had Aaron Bailey on, Aaron was on the end of an 11-man snare line we talked about. I was on the end of a 10-man, and that was hard enough. Having 18 of them, like...
Just the pure physics involved of, like, sounds traveling together.
Sound waves and everything.
Difficult to probably never be 100% clear.
But rhythmically, all of that 18 snare drum stuff was good rhythmically.
It's 16 snare drums.
It's 18.
I think pretty sure it's
16. No, it's 18.
Because they break off in pods of 8 and 8.
Well...
yeah.
Okay.
Either way, there's a lot of snare drums. And that's a lot of guts
them
on snare drums.
It's a lot of vibrating snare strands.
But I think that they deserve that 2 spot. But the difference for me between them and Vanguard is just Vanguard has more. It's just like all the time. It's just like they're just throwing notes at your face, and it's great.
Yeah, BD picks and chooses their spots, which is what they've always done, and what a lot of groups do. They'll play when they aren't exposed. The difficulty of the book typically goes way down because they're not like the only thing going on. But man, when they have those exposed moments, they're playing stuff harder than just about anybody. Yeah, and they're doing it really, really well.
Like people talk about like those wow moments, those feature moments, and I just think Vanguard has more of them, and they're all really good.
Yeah,
and that kind of separates them. All right, dropping down here in our 3rd spot. 3rd in percussion last night I guess now it's last night.
Yeah, this is the morning after.
Would have been Bluecoats.
I was happily surprised because I didn't think they had a good run last week in San Antonio, but some of that could have been attributed to streaming it over the internet plus a dome. So they had a lot of moments that sounded really good.
Yeah, they did. I thought they started strong, and I thought that they ended the show really strong.
Yes.
The next couple weeks for them will just be, I guess, getting out these ricky-ticky moments, those, like, exposed moments. Because they did have one exposed moment where it was just, like, from our perspective, watching it sounded atrocious.
And it was unfortunate because it was their big, long drum feature where the snares start up on the prop.
And that was great.
And that was phenomenal.
The add-in
on the prop was really, really good. They nailed it. And then they come down off the prop to the front of the field, and the quads and basses are on either side, and they're like, that moment was really good. But as soon as they came forward off the prop, like...
the balance just went...
somebody's head exploded. Like, not their drum head, but like their physical head on their shoulders, like, exploded, and like the balance went out of whack from section to section. Like, within the snare line alone, like, it just, for the rest of it, was just gray and muddy. And it was like, but they're getting there. They're getting there. And like Ben said, he compared this group to the Cavies 2011 and hoping the same thing happens, where all season they're off and on. The book's really hard. And as the season goes on, they just start nailing more and more phrases. And by finals, they just stuck with the approach. And by finals, they were just great and won a drum trophy.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they're on track to win a drum trophy. I think this book is more demanding than the Cavies book was in 2011 from a chops and just like
Yeah.
number of notes standpoint. So that they're both extremely hard, but just for different reasons. I'm not saying the Blue Coats book doesn't have space in it, because it does. Rarick writes space, but it's not the kind of rhythmic weirdness in space that Mac can write sometimes.
Yeah. I still say that the pit for them is just unjudgeable. Like, it's an unjudgeable ensemble.
Yeah, I was thinking about that last night, because the judge can't stand in front of one section because you can't tell if they're playing together. It's like one marimba here, 15 yards apart, the next marimba in a vibe or something, or like a rack and a marimba there.
Yeah, they're so far apart. And if you're in the box judging, you may hear it coming through like the speakers, electronics and stuff, but at the same time, it almost seems like a cop-out to me, because it's like you have all of these marimbas and vibes and stuff, and you have them sampled and coming through the PA and the speakers, but like, are all four of them balanced equally, and are all four of them being put through the monitors equally?
One would hope.
Maybe they are. I would hope so, but like, who knows? And usually you rely on the field judge to get that other perspective of like, oh yeah, the clarity's here, but he can't really do that because they're so far spread apart.
Yeah.
So I still think that front it's an unjudgeable product, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens. They definitely upped their game from last weekend to this weekend, so probably had a good rehearsal week, and
I agree.
It was good to see.
All right, takes us into our overall 4 spot for percussion, which was the Cavaliers.
Again, they're solid.
Good. Yeah, they're solid.
That quad feature was cool as hell, though.
Yeah.
When they spin the drums around, they played that really well.
They played it well.
Didn't hear a single rim. Like I said last week, I'm a fan of their drum line this year.
Yeah.
I think they're very good. They're getting better every time I see them. They're better than the last time I saw them.
Their front ensemble still blows my mind.
If I'm being honest, I'm surprised they didn't beat the Blue Coats in percussion. That kind of surprised me. My prediction before the recap came out, was that it'd be Vanguard, BD, Cavies, Crown. The order of Cavies and Crown would be, I didn't know who would be
3,
third
4,
or fourth, and Blue Coats
up.
would be in fifth. That was my prediction, just based on what I heard. But obviously they saw. Who was the judge? Do we know?
Well, there's 2 judges. You had Mike Leitsky on the field judging, and I'm going to butcher this last name, Romanowski in the box probably judging. That's usually the way they label it on the recap. Usually
Did the placings match up between field and box?
So, well, actually, Mike had Blue Coats second on the field, which I don't agree with.
That I don't agree with, no.
And then he had BD third on the field, and Cavaliers fifth, and Crown fourth. So, Crown Cavaliers, I could flip-flop either way for me as far as overall placement. I think both are doing really well, and I like Crown's book better than I like Cavaliers' book. I still hate this snare split. Like, it sounds like crap
It just does, man.
No matter when you hear it, it just sounds bad.
It's just not even when it's in there and the split is perfect. You can still hear the little imperfections in the drums, and everybody is hitting the drum with a little bit different stick velocity, and hands weigh different amounts, and the weight behind the stroke's different. Like, I don't know why you do it.
Yeah.
And
it sounded worse outside than it did inside because it's all dry, and
it did sound worse to me outside than inside. And I feel like they played it rhythmically well. Like, I think it's just set up to not sound good. I don't know.
All right, so going from Cavaliers to Crown, which Crown finished fifth in percussion.
They got dogged a little bit.
Yeah, I think they got dogged. I mean,
I thought they got well.
They got fifth and from the box judge, and I'm just like, really? Because like the box judge is like always talking about, I guess, alignment and front to back, and that sort of thing falls into that responsibility. And I don't think they have the fifth place.
What were the content scores?
Crown actually got third in content on the field.
See, that makes sense.
And then fourth in clarity or achievement on the field, but then the box judge just had on fifth across the board, and I'm just like,
that's weird.
Really? Like fifth? Like, I don't know.
I think they're better than both Cavies and Blue Coats on any average night. Again, we weren't on the field. They might have had a bad run. That can happen. But I feel like that 3, 4, 5 spot, those are the 3 groups that should be in that spot.
Yeah.
And maybe on any given night, the order of those 3 groups could switch just based on who I think Vanguard and BD have established themselves as the top 2. and then 3, 4, and 5 are those 3 groups. So I agree with the 3 groups that are in there. Just the order of them in that little bracket didn't make sense to me.
And I think that'll be interesting too to watch that one unfold there. It's kind of like a competition within a competition. So, all right, moving down here, 6th spot, the old BK, who, in my opinion, have one of the coolest uses of electronics in this summer.
That snare solo where they have his drum mic'd is awesome.
And they're like bending the pitch and changing it.
First off, that kid's a freak to be able to play singles that fast. Well, like, I don't know how he does that. And I've seen a couple guys within my drumming career that just have that twitch muscle in their hands and can just
control it and just it's in there.
Just knock out singles.
But that is a really cool moment.
Oh yeah, from a design standpoint, from an effect standpoint, really well done and really cool.
That show is kind of wild to me. Like you said this last night, it's almost it's an indoor percussion show with horn accompaniment. Like the whole like beginning half of the show is just drums up front and like the brass behind.
It's Drumline and Friends.
Drumline and Friends, yeah,
that's what their show is. It's cool. They're good. It's good. It's entertaining. They do it really well.
It's cool for us as drummers.
Oh, for sure.
We're just like, oh yeah.
Horn players might
see that drill on their drill chart, and you're like, oh, we're gonna be up front for the whole show. All right, yeah, sign me up.
Perfect.
It's like
we get to do indoor drumline, not in a box.
Yeah, exactly.
Outside on a football field.
And they have some really good moments. Their drums sound a little wet sometimes. I think that kind of muddies the clarity to where like those Mapex drums are just really just thick on the bottom head. Sounds
can be.
So, but they had a great run.
Yep.
I enjoy the show. It's definitely innovative. Bringing us down to our 7th spot.
Making me sound like an idiot over and over again on these things.
The holy name shall always be? Question mark.
I guess.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
Last week they got 7th in drums at San Antonio. The Cadets did,
and I didn't buy it. I was like, no way.
They played really well. They played even in the dome. Sounded great. And this week just made all 3 of us sound like a bunch of idiots.
But that's all right.
Talking on that podcast from post San Antonio because the drums didn't sound the same. Now, granted, outside versus inside.
Maybe they're tuning for inside. I don't know.
Who knows? But they sounded really wet. Like they might have possibly done a head change really recently on the snare drums. Not a whole lot cut. Like a lot of it sounded muddy and gray and just not.
They had less stuff that sounded like it cut through than some of like those groups that like were like Seattle Cascades or Crusaders.
Like granted, their book's way harder than those groups.
Yeah,
but
not even close.
We know it's possible. Like it's like, do we give them the benefit of the doubt? Not really, in my opinion, because we're outside, and other groups had gone before them, and stuff, no matter where they were on the field, was picked up perfectly by the microphones and streamed over the internet.
There was other stuff in the cadet show that you're like, oh, I can hear that crystal clear, and then at other points you're like, I can't hear.
When they came back in, they're in the back, they go behind the props in the back right of the field from the audience's perspective, and then they come out, and that's like that drum feature moving up the field.
Yeah. And
they're ramming notes. They nailed that last weekend, and this weekend they came in, and it was just like gray and thick the entire time.
Yeah.
I don't know if George didn't let the core sleep and they were all really tired. I don't know, but that...
I'll feed you if you win tonight.
Yeah, right? You win percussion, you get food.
Well, then they didn't get food.
Then they didn't get food, apparently. Yeah, I think they should be in 7th. Based on the run last night. Who was in 8th?
Dude, 8th was Phantom, and I could argue that Phantom sounded way better than Cadets did.
That's why I asked. I was like, wait a minute. Phantom was there, and I thought Phantom sounded really good.
They had they had a couple gray moments too here and there, but like they also had moments where I was like,
that's perfect.
That's in there.
Yep.
They nailed that. And Phantom's show is aggressive. It's hard. They
might be a little too hard.
Yeah, I think it's too hard for the core as a whole. Like it's just it's a challenge because they just go a lot of the time. But they're playing a lot of notes. It's fast. It's aggressive, and I dig that. They're going for it, so good for them. Yeah, I thought Phantom. Yeah, like you said, you could make an argument that Phantom should have been above the Cadets last night in percussion. Now, stuff could have sounded better on the field. Was there a difference between like on-field judge and box judge for the Cadets? See, Cadets on field got 6th, and in the box got 7th. Who'd they beat?
They beat BK on the field?
They beat BK on the field in achievement, but not in content. So he gave them the book. They are ranging on the field. And actually, they were 8th. The cadets were 8th from the box from content standpoint behind Phantom.
And that could be the front.
Yeah, it could be
like
the
we
front.
talked about last week. I haven't heard many good things about their front. They're just
cadets,
just kind of there. They don't do anything terrible, but they're not doing anything that's going to be like, wow, that's incredible.
It's also such like a weird setup. They have like the 10 marimbas and 10 vibes and stuff.
Yeah, I don't.
But they don't play them all at the same time all the time. And I think sometimes like when you do stuff that's really innovative and different like that, it's cool. But at the same time, it's like a risk of like, is the person judging going to pick up on what we're doing? Are they going to recognize this? Because you're giving them something to look at and listen to that they've not used to really judging. So they're probably thinking like, oh, how do I judge this? How do I read this? What's the most effective way to give this group a fair assessment? But yeah, I've not heard stellar things out of the cadets' whole front ensemble there.
So, Phantom, to recap that big run-on sentence we just spit out there, cadets did not play very well, it seemed. I thought Phantom played very well.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, there were moments that it's like, wow, that was perfect, and that wasn't an easy phrase either. They just nailed it. So good for them. Phantoms doing
Shout
really
out
well.
to Henry Iwinski nailing those upbeat singles.
Yep.
Marching bass too.
Yep.
Getting those in there.
Good stuff.
All right, moving down. So after 8th, we got our 9th place group, Blue Stars.
Yes, 9 does come after 8.
Every time. Blue Stars holding down the 9 spot. And I think at the beginning of the year, I was just like, man, they sound so good. They're so balanced. They sound so great already. The touch is great. But now I'm just like, it is a great touch, but maybe not for outdoor.
I was really excited to get to see this group on the outdoor stage like this and be like, okay, the dome swallowed a bunch of sound. It always does, whatever. I'm going to get to hear them and see if they really do play as softly or as quietly as it seemed a week ago. And they do.
Yep.
They do.
It is
even exposed moments. Maybe the mics were a little hot last night in the front, but even the percussion exposed moments like front and battery and the horns aren't playing, you still had trouble hearing their inner beats and stuff.
You're like straining to hear.
Like we're both sitting on the couch like reaching our head forward towards the sound bar on Evan's TV like
shh, nobody talk.
Yeah, everybody be quiet. We have to see if this is clean or not. And I think it's too soft. You can watch them play. Like I think I rarely saw them play an accent over 9 inches. And that's not really a good indicator of the touch you play with, but it just kind of just goes to the whole, you can be a little more aggressive, guys. You can hit the drum a little harder.
And I think, yeah. So that's a preference too. Cause
It is. Because some people you might ask might think they play phenomenally and this sounds great balance-wise. And who knows? Maybe when we get to see them in person here in a couple weeks at finals, it will sound really well balanced live within the whole musical ensemble of that whole drum corps on the field. But that's not coming across to us watching it on the Flow marching stream.
Definitely not.
And they play well too. Ben said it last week. They play really well. I could just use a little more oomph.
A little velocity.
Yeah.
All right, dropping down 10 spot, The Academy by a hair.
Wait, they were only barely behind Blue Stars?
No, their show's called By a Hair.
Oh.
They're actually a pretty good amount behind Blue Stars.
Okay. I was like, yeah, they should not be on the same.
It's just like hard for me to watch their drumline because I just don't like that show so much. I'm like, I get lost and tune out. I'm like, I don't like this show.
Yeah, it's
too cheesy for me. Like, I'm alright with cheesy and like quirky, but it's just no.
Duck season, Wabbit season. I kept every time I watch that, I keep waiting for them to like have a surprise of where like a guard member is actually dressed up as Elmer Fudd.
Kind of are.
They are? Oh no, correction. I keep waiting for Daffy Duck to make an appearance.
Oh, okay.
Like they have the guard in rabbit costumes and they have like, I guess they have an Elmer Fudd-esque costume as well.
Yeah, kind of.
It's like, I keep waiting for the sign to get changed to duck season, and like out of one of those stumps on the front sideline, have a Daffy Duck pop out and like run across the field or something. And who knows, that might be their big surprise on finals night. Daffy Duck makes an appearance.
I don't know if they're going to make finals. Is the only thing.
Well, semifinals night.
Finals week, they're trying to throw it in there with that extra oomph.
Yeah.
But right now, I mean, they finished that show overall in like 11th, and Boston and Crossman weren't there, who are both been beating them, and I think Scouts have been
Mandarins
beating them.
too.
And Mandarins, yeah. So I think they're on the outside looking in for finals, but
possibly.
All right. In 11th, percussion and overall, Spirit of Atlanta. And I still think that Spirit is just way better than they were last year. Like, yeah, they're not going to like go out and compete for like an upper level, but they had some moments where I was like, all right, yeah, drums sound good, playing well.
Mm-hmm.
I think we had both realized at that point in the night that everyone is now going to try to play rough drags and left-hand ping shots.
That's like the flavor. Roughs, like open stroke roughs, like drag. Rough.
Yeah,
an open stroke rough is like has been like the in thing for the past 3 or 4 years. But like Broken City with their indoor show and those left-hand shots, I feel like just really made that like
everyone's playing left-hand
the new
shots.
Cool fad thing to play a bunch of in your show, and it's fine. They're cool. Pick your spots with them. I don't hate them. Sounds like a shot.
There's like 4 groups, I swear, they were playing just like isolated left-hand pings, just 3 or 4 in a row.
Yeah, there were.
Cha.
Yep.
Cha.
It's the new hotness for the summer is the left-hand rim shot.
And it is hard. I mean, it's just an open space attack, but at the same time, it's like, I get
It's
it.
just funny how it's
well, that Broken City blew up. It was like memes and people making GIFs out of it and all kinds of stuff.
And it's funny. It goes back to in that same vein of Blue Coats won with an out of the ordinary show last year. Look at what everybody tried to do this year. It's like Broken City had those sweet left-hand shots in their indoor show, and they did really well. Oh, that's really cool. We should write that in my book now. Like, it's cool. I'm a fan. I mean, I played my left-hand shots at Blue Coats when I was there, and played a bunch of open stroke roughs, and I'm okay with it. Pointed it out pretty much. It's funny how that works.
All right, let's see here.
With these last few, outside of Oregon Crusaders, who I thought was probably the best of this last slew of groups.
Yeah, so we had Oregon Crusaders, Genesis, Seattle Cascades, Jersey Surf, and Pioneer rounding out the bottom.
The only one I really want to talk about there is Oregon Crusaders. I think you could have made an argument that they could have beaten Spirit and Drums.
Oh, yeah, and Pacific Crest, but same thing. I think that Oregon could have beaten Spirit and Drums. They had, I think, a more challenging book. They were playing all those like mackerels
and doing it well too. They were playing them well.
Yeah, cutting through.
I remember sitting there asking Evan. I was like, "Who teaches there?"
We had to look it up. We're like,
they're really good.
Yeah,
who's teaching
good
that
instruction, group? Good kids going on there. Good for them, man. It's good to see.
And that kind of rounds out the recap there. Not a whole lot of curveballs thrown at us from last week to this week.
Not much shifting.
Crown getting dogged a little bit was probably the biggest surprise out of everything.
Yeah. Cadets
should have actually been in 7th place that last night, based on what we heard. So potentially 8th, yes, potentially 8th. So does this change your drum trophy predictions at all? I'm 100% on Vanguard.
I mean, my original prediction was that Vanguard was going to win. So I'm still going to stick with, I think Vanguard is going to win. I mean, my 2 through 5 has changed drastically. I mean, at the beginning of the year, I had Crown and Cadets, or as my like 2 and 3.
Yep.
Or flip-flop, Cadets, Crown, Crown, Cadets. I mean, I still have Crown probably in like my top 3. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, BD's, their magical wisdom of we have people who are talented and just figure it out. They're just playing well, and yeah.
I mean, I said last week that the safe bet for the drum trophy is Vanguard. And then I said if Cavies continue to grow at the rate they've been growing at from a clarity standpoint, they could win a drum trophy with the book they have and everything. I think Vanguard, if they keep doing what they're doing, just made everybody go, Cavies who?
Yeah, I think Vanguard is running away with it right now.
I would agree.
And I think it's been long overdue for Paul Rinnick and at one of his groups to win back-to-back drum trophies.
Yeah, 'cause it's always been alternating years. 06, didn't win in 07. 08, didn't win in 09. 10, didn't win in 11.
12 was BD.
That was the one even number unit didn't win. But then 13 didn't win. 14 they won. 15 they didn't win. 16 they won. So it's like
who won in 15?
Was
that BD?
I think probably.
Oh,
Usually when Vanguard doesn't win.
But the only one that I'll say that I really, going back to 07, I was like, man, he could have won that year. I heard that they didn't play great on the field, but the group that won in 07 was not good either.
That was one of the years Bluecoats probably an argument could have been made for Bluecoats to win the trophy that year too.
Somehow Blue Devils won in 07.
They always do that. When there's no like clear best group, I feel like Blue Devils is just what they default to. Like, all right, fine, BD is the best.
Well, speaking of default, I guess let's transition that then into like, we'll kind of talk a little bit about the overall placements and then like some of like maybe our judging notions on the activity of drum corps and the
you took
judging
notes
community.
from Ben last week with that segue. That's good. That's right, smooth in there.
It's pretty smooth, man. I'm stepping my game up here. But so overall, Blue Devils and Vanguard 1-2. I saw somewhere on the Twitterverse, which means it's probably 100% accurate, no doubt.
Of course.
that gap between BD and Vanguard was the closest finish in like drum corps history. Now, obviously, that's something I saw on Twitter, but it's cool to think about. It was really, really close. It's like 0.0136 or something like that. Very, very, very small. So very cool that it's such a tight-knit race there. And then you had a big jump to Crown at third, which I think is probably a little bit too big. And part of that's probably because they got dogged in percussion because they were fifth in percussion but third overall. So bump those captions up, and that's going to close the gap between second and third. But you and I have talked about this before, just kind of going back and forth, spitballing about how we think it's intentionally designed that the judging community will keep certain gaps in the race close during the course of a season to like build intrigue and excitement.
Oh yeah, they're building a storyline.
Yeah.
They need a storyline. And I think this year will be akin to the 2008 year when Phantom won with Spartacus, and they won by like 0.025 or something.
They came into finals week like in fourth and swung to first
and
or something.
Swung up to first because that show was awesome and they were really, really good. I think they're setting up a situation like that for Vanguard and BD this summer. I think they're developing a narrative, and they are. I think we're going to see over the last 2 weeks. Yes, 2 weeks of the season left. The last 2 weeks, Vanguard is going to beat BD by an extremely small margin, once or twice, to like, oh man, it's possible. It's possible. Vanguard could do this. But then quarters and semis, BD is going to beat them. And finals night, they'll have Vanguard beat them by like that 0.013 margin or something. And
more than likely, I can see that happening.
I think that's exactly what they're doing because I'm a drum corps judging conspiracy theorist. I think they plan who's going to win based on what direction they want the activity to go in, which is kind of crappy. I think there's proof of that. I mean, I will go as far as to say this. You look at the recap from finals last year, the Blue Coast didn't win a single caption except GE. Put your tinfoil hats on for a second there, everybody. I'm just putting that out there. I was waiting a little while to put it out there, but just putting that out there. I think DCI wanted the activity to go in this direction and pushing the Blue Coats as the winner. Now, I'm not saying they weren't good and weren't potentially deserving of that gold medal. I'm an alumni. I think they were very good last year. Very, very good. But if you look at the recap, so it's a little suspicious.
Looks a
little suspicious.
I think that it's good to question it like that, and I don't think that it's out of the question to think that the judging community in DCI is politically charged and like there's motivations to do certain things and keep the activity entertaining and changing, especially knowing some of the things that I know from being on a performer standpoint and like hearing things that are told to staff members when they're in critique by judges, like, oh, what you guys are doing is way better than what everyone else is doing. But then looking at the recap, and it's like, well, you had us in second, so you clearly didn't think that. And then the judges being like, well, I just had to put the other group ahead. It's like, what does that even mean? Like, what are you saying right now? And like hearing stuff where like judges go into contests and they've had emails sent out to them like, hey guys, remember we got to keep the spreads close tonight. Why? Why do you have to keep the spreads close? What if one group completely tanks and one group does really well? Like, no.
One could argue they say that maybe because everybody can have one off night. But then if that's truth, the next show they're at, that gap will be closed again if that was just an off night. So I also want to put out there, if any of our friends listening to this stop hearing from us and we stop uploading these, you know what happened.
DCI is coming after us.
They got to us.
But whatever. I mean, we heard from people, like you said, Mike, like late last year in like the middle of the season, like, oh, it's already been decided Bluecoats are going to win. And I'm not going to throw anyone under the bus.
No, but there were rumors of that sprinkling around, like, it's like, yep, Bluecoats are going to win. It's like, what? It's like July 10th.
How do a lot of that could just be like, oh, just like so-and-so told me that they think they're going to win, or so-and-so told me that they think they're going to win. But at the same time, it's like, if you're in a position where you judge, like, or you know people that do, like, you shouldn't say stuff like that out loud.
yeah, exactly.
It doesn't sound good.
And I don't want this to come off as to become like a bash fest of the Bluecoats last year, saying they didn't deserve that gold medal, because I think they do. I think they were good enough to win a gold medal. But like I said, I've always been, even when I was marching, a drum corps judging conspiracy theorist. And it just, looking at that recap, it makes you think like, oh, they're second in every caption, but they won GE by enough to win. And that's how the scores are weighted, that happened. Like I said, their percussion section was very good last year. The horn line was very good. The visual package was very good. The show was very exciting. Like, I'm not sitting here saying the Bluecoats didn't deserve that gold medal because I have friends that were in that group. I'm an alumni. I'm not going to sit here and say that because I don't think that. I don't think they were undeserving of it. But I think it just contributes to that whole idea of, oh, they came out and did something new, which was potentially refreshing for the activity, preventing it from getting stale, and then they just so happened to win.
Yeah.
By not winning any caption but GE.
And I think some of, not even as much as like conspiracy with like the judging community too, but this could probably be said for any judge in any caption. They have critique after the shows and stuff, and then if you have somebody coming at you, a Colin McNutt, a Tom Ongst, and they're mad at the placement you gave them, and they're coming at you as a judge like, why did you put me here, blah, 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 you didn't read this right, you didn't read this right, and they're just like, they're angry about their score, and they're like complaining to you about not doing a good job judging their group, then that stuff is going to be in the back of your head the next time you go out. Like, Scott Johnson comes up and is complaining to so-and-so, like, you missed this, you didn't get out on the field for this, like, you didn't blah, 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 you missed this moment, you missed that moment. Then the next night, you go out to judge, you're like, oh, I guess I better get out here for this. And you have that stuff, I'm sure, in the back of your head, like, I got to make sure I get this in there and judge it.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, it's almost like turns into a who complained the most at the last night's critique, so to make sure that their group gets a better read the next night or something. Which, I guess, as a part of a staff member, is your responsibility. Like, you got to tell the judge, like, you got to get out there for this. This is the moment you're missing. But
that could go into that whole thing of, and I mentioned it a little bit last week, about a corps' name hurting a certain segment of the group, like the percussion section not getting the benefit of the doubt in situations because it's like, oh, it's just the Blue Stars, or oh, it's just the Crossmen. So if like a judge, whereas what I mean by that is if a judge, like, drum corps drill is complicated and the judges obviously don't know the drill by heart, so there's going to be times where they might be out of position to read something properly. And as with bigger groups, I mean, I've heard it on judges' tapes that I've listened to, in groups that I was in and in groups my friends were in, like top groups. You listen to it and the recording of the tape sounds like they chowed it. And they will literally just say, I've heard a judge say before, oh, I must have been out of position for that. And I think groups that are bigger names in the activity get a little more leeway when it comes to that, where the judges might think, oh, they're really good. I had to have been out of position for that because the rest of what they played was really good before that. It's like, no, a guy could have just missed an attack, or a guy could have whatever.
Yeah.
And those lower groups, I don't think, like, having a name like the Crossmen might not bring with it as much of that benefit of the doubt when a judge is legitimately or not legitimately out of position for a role or whatever. It's I think that does go on. I think the name and what uniform you're wearing impacts judges' opinions, and I think it'd be really cool for like next season. I think we talked about this like on the second episode or something. Because all these uniforms now are different based on the show. You don't really know who's who until you like hear the name announced or look at the schedule in the order and you're watching it. If they didn't tell the judges who was who, like it would be really hard to do this legitimately, like logistically, to keep them from finding out from friends what uniforms are which. And if you could have the first like 2 shows of the summer be blind, like just they don't know who the core is. They just get a show name and they watch it and judge it.
It would be interesting. I mean, I think it would be fun to do that. About halfway through the show, you'd be like, "Oh, this is the Blue Devils," because everybody knows how they write. Or be like, "Oh, this is Rennick." Because everybody knows how it's like.
Yeah, it wouldn't be easy to pull it off, but if there was some way to do that, it'd be really cool to see if things got shaken up or if
it's definitely cool in theory.
Oh,
I agree.
As a hypothetical, I think it'd be awesome.
So,
but
yeah, overall, it'll be interesting to see how that kind of unfolds. The overall winners, seeing if Vanguard and BD kind of flip-flop and then flip back, and then Vanguard takes over at the very end on the last night in triumphant victory.
That's the storyline I think they're building, because I think Vanguard's show is a lot more demanding. I think it's a lot cooler.
And I think Mandarins will get into the top 12. I don't know if they've ever been. I don't know that, but
DCI does like that narrative of like, oh, this group finally made finals. Like they snuck into 12th after semis night and like earned that spot. That's another narrative they can build and market.
Because I remember it was either like 2009 or 2010, like Troopers got in there, and either they hadn't been in for a really long time or it was the first time.
I think I remember that, yeah.
And everybody's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Digging it, but.
Well, that's our recap. And our little tinfoil hat moment there.
Yeah.
I knew that was going to happen at some point on one of these. That tinfoil hat was going to come out, and we were going to kind of be like, the judges are a little suspicious.
Yeah.
A little suspicious.
It is suspicious.
But the last thing, like we said earlier, there were 6 groups that just randomly weren't there last night. And I know Allentown is a 2-day regional, but usually they like split up the top 8. So like 1, 3, 5, and 7, like all the odd number placements will go on Saturday, and I don't know how.
Yeah, they don't put them all on one night.
But like the show tonight is in like North Carolina.
Yeah, there's like, I think it's like Night Beat or Crown Beat.
Yeah, something. Oddly though, those 6 groups that were all missing from the Atlanta Regional yesterday are performing at the show in North Carolina with the top 8. So maybe it is like a pseudo. I don't know. If anyone knows why the Mandarins, Colts, Crossmen, Scouts, Boston, and Troopers weren't there
last night,
send us an email.
But are there tonight? Put
a comment on the YouTube video, something, or the Facebook group, whatever, because I'm curious. And we've texted a few people to try to find out.
I was like, hey, why weren't you guys at the show last night? I was like, I don't know, man. I really
It's a good question.
But we had a good rehearsal day. I was like, well, all right.
So I don't know what the deal with that was. I don't think I've ever seen not everybody be at like Allentown, Atlanta, San Antonio. Like that's like the regionals. That's like you have to be at those. So if anyone knows,
but
let us know.
Yeah, today a little bit shorter. We just didn't want to beat too much of a dead horse.
Yeah, I think,
with the same stuff we've done last week.
Yep. I think now the next one after this one, we will take a week off because I have an exam to study for over the next 2 weeks, and I don't think
real life.
Yeah, I don't think schedule wise we'll be able to meet up and watch the 2-day regional in Allentown next week and then do one of these. So the next one we upload will be post finals.
Yeah, the plan is to go up right now, at least, and watch semis inside because it's cheaper.
Yes.
And then check out some finals lots and
on Saturday.
Really get to see some stuff live.
So we get to finally see if we're just stupid and being fooled by the internet, or if we were spot on what we were reading through the television set.
Trolled by Flow Marching.
Yeah, right.
Which has trolled me before. The last night's cast was great, but San Antonio, I was about to have a meltdown.
What was wrong with
not the San Antonio. It was the 2 days before. It was one of them before San Antonio. Yeah.
No, before.
It was before San Antonio. Like the sound went out, and I was like, "All right, guys, figure
that
it
sucks."
out." Yeah, I guess we'll plan on seeing everybody here in a couple weeks.
Yeah. As always, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Like the Facebook page at facebook.com/Aged
Out Podcast.
You can also find us on Instagram Do we have the Twitter account really running yet?
The Twitter is going, but hasn't been as maintenance as Instagram.
Yeah,
so Instagram's definitely leading the charge.
I would really go to Facebook and Instagram. And Instagram is just look up H Out Podcast. Like we said,
you can always find the newest episode in the bio of the Instagram.
We always have a link to the most recent one there. Other than that, we'll see everybody in 2 weeks.
Peace.